our topic today is the hunt for the unicorn. We all hope for them, we all look for them, and Alan has a unique story to tell, but a little bit of background. Based out of Chicago, invested in over 40 startups. Yes, he brought his checkbook, by the way, so if you're looking for money, he's your man. And Cranes, which is one of the business publications in Chicago, called him the lone wolf of angel investment. So Alan has done a lot of deals by himself, but he's also very happy to go in on deals. I have the pleasure of having one investment with him, and which we're very excited about. And but we're going to talk about unicorns. So Alan, have you ever had a chance to see a unicorn, and you want to share it with us?
Yeah, so first I just want to thank Joe. He told me about this event months ago, and he pulled it off. I mean, this is really, you know, a home run here, and this is V1, right? This is V1, and some of the technology here is just amazing. So I want to thank Joe for, you know, inviting me here, and actually for putting this whole thing together. So
you're welcome.
So yeah, I had told Joe, I mean, I don't know how many out there admit it, but I was offered a position in Uber about 4 years ago, and I turned it down. And at the time, it was valuation. I didn't understand the power of the crowd. You know, that 50 grand might be worth 15, 20 million today. So, you know, this is a lesson that you learn in, you know, you call it your tuition. But the power of the crowd, and when you start to think about, you know, you've heard this ad nauseum, so we don't have to talk about Uber and Airbnb over and over, but what they are, they're platforms to allow individuals to monetize themselves and to use resources that go unused. And so there's a company here that I spoke with last night that you'll be able to rent your own personal car, like an Airbnb for your own personal car. So what is it that, you know, made Airbnb what it is, or Uber what it is? It's a platform, right? It's the platform. So look at Nest, right? Nest, which is a thermostat, right? Or the VR goggles that 2-point-some years ago they did a Kickstarter for them. They wanted to raise $250,000. They raised $2.5 million in about a month, right? And then they sold to Facebook for $2 billion. So again, what is it? What is this connection that allows these companies to move so fast and at scale, right? It's people, and this is the new phrase here is mobility. It's not automobiles. It's the idea of connecting to another person, right? It's connecting to another person at scale and empowering yourself.
So talking about business models, I'm wondering if there is a business model that is conducive to the unicorns. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Uber, they don't own any cars. If you look at Facebook, it does not create content. If you look at Airbnb, it does not have any real estate. And if you look at Alibaba, has no inventory. Is this the business model template, the blueprint for a unicorn?
Well, again, this is the thing called the platform, right? So I'm going to digress here for a minute, but I was a trader on the trading floor for 3+ decades, and people used to talk about the Board of Trade or the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. It was a building. It's a building, right? It's just a building, and it had members, and it created a platform for those members to interact. So what platforms are we creating? New financial platforms. That's one of the large ones, right? Health, new platforms for doctors and patients and billing. Build a platform, build some piece of software, possibly connected to a device, and this is why, I mean, I could go on for, you know, days on this, but the entire world that we live in is being rewritten. I mean, the entire infrastructure is in one way collapsing, and then it's being rebuilt. And for example, Nest, right? There's a company over here that's doing these light poles that look like cylinders. Go and ask them for information, and especially ask for the facial recognition capabilities that they have.
That is our premium partner, Shred that Alan is referring to. Some of you might think these light posts that you see are permanent in this building, but this is actually Shred smart city solution. They have over 50 of these posts that are installed around the hallway, so please check that out. So another interesting question I have on the unicorns, Alan, is the financial markets are in turmoil, and a lot of people are concerned about their retirement and everything else. And one of the theories out of the Valley is that the Valley is immune to this situation because the companies I just mentioned are all pre-IPO, and they're raising money at evaluations that are just mind-boggling because a lot of Valley money comes from exits, and there's a lot of cash-rich people who have this fear of missing out, of grabbing that next unicorn. What is your opinion around that?
So, Joe, you phrase this like perfectly, and I'm not just saying this, but that is the absolute perfect question, and I'm going to answer it by an answer that Mark Cuban gave in Chicago about 2 months ago. And here's the thing. I feel that. I mean, this is me, right? So you make an investment, they are pre-IPO, there's no bid offer. So, for over, like I said, for almost 4 decades I was a trader, and you could be taking a loss in something, but there was a buyer, right? There was a buyer at some price. And with these startups, and I'll give you an example. So I'm in a company called Popular Pays, and I made an investment when it was just Corbett Drummy's idea. And so I made an investment at a $2 million valuation. Well, they raised money at a $12 million valuation, and Instagram just made them a premier partner. So that put an extra couple points on it. Okay, what does that mean? Right? What does it mean? Can I sell that and buy a new fancy electric car here? It's a market with no bidders. That's the thing. It's all on this valuation. So I can say this fund has a valuation now of something, so many X from where you put your money in, but good luck taking it to the bank until there's some way to cash out.
For those of you who don't know Mark Cuban, he's a serial entrepreneur, billionaire, had a number of exits. He's on the Shark Tank in the United States, and Alan is a co-investor in a Chicago-based startup that is where Cuban is involved and was on the Shark Tank. So another interesting story. So we're both from Chicago, and obviously Frankfurt is far, far away, but every time new lists come out, Chicago ranks in the top 3 places for startups to be. A lot of our European friends here are looking into going into the United States. What is so special about Chicago, in your opinion, and why is it conducive to helping startups get going?
Well, I feel like this is a little bit of a setup, and it's not. But I've said for a long time I could be a Chicago spokesperson. Look, they've got big, we have some big problems. We're broke, and the state's broke, and we're very tribal, I would say. But I have to tell you, I've been in over 90 countries, and people ask me, well, what's your favorite place? I'm like, what do you think? I mean, this is why I live there, right? I mean, we call it Lake Michigan. It's a sea. It's a sea of clean water. And you want to get across town, well, I don't know, I know this is a sophisticated crowd, but, have you been to Rio? Have you been to Beijing? Have you been to Shanghai? I mean, try and get across town, right? So, that 6 degrees of separation in Chicago, it's probably 2 or 3, but the key thing is, it would be the key thing anywhere in life, I would say, especially in China, especially in Latin America, it's your partners. You just have to find the right partners. You find the right partners, and you're going to get it done in Chicago really quick. And you're going to have the right people that have your back. And Joe may have the statistics, but there's some big exits coming out of Chicago. And the price of a home or your rental is extraordinarily lower than anywhere else. And the subway system is pretty good unless you're trying to carry 2 massive suitcases, back from Burning Man and on the subway system. But
so actually BMW has opened their second connected car research center in Chicago. Their first one was in the Valley. And I'm a little bit biased myself because I live in Chicago as well, but just from a pure time zone perspective and from an infrastructure perspective, it is a great place for companies to get their start. And we have an incubator called 1871 run by Howard Tolman, and it is the largest in terms of square footage in the United States, and very good infrastructure as well, as Alan is pointing out. So Alan, you're a member of the Chicago Council of Global Affairs, and one of the things I appreciate about you, you just mentioned Rio, you just mentioned Asia, that you have a global perspective on things. Is there a geography that you see being a little bit more likely to have the next unicorn? We mentioned Alibaba out of Asia, but we also had the other ones coming out of the United States. Is there a geographic advantage?
So, you know, that's a great question. Look, we know that Latin America is beginning to produce a lot of economic growth. Now, there is a very specific data point that is female Hispanics are right now, if you want to make a bet, it's female Hispanics. If you want to make a big bet, it's female related companies. Now, let me tell you a story. I was in Zimbabwe about 3 years ago, and I was out on an early morning safari, and there were 3 Chinese women in a vehicle with me, and we were talking about China. We were talking about, because I went to China in 1987, so I've seen the growth. And one of the women turned around. They were looking at doing some agricultural products. She turned around, she smacked my leg, and she goes, "Africa is where China was 30 years ago," and it's kind of off the radar of most people because, like everything, you've got to have the right partners. But I would say somehow figuring that one out, that's where you're going to get a huge bang for your buck.
You mentioned female entrepreneurs, and I know this is a big focus, not just in the United States, but around the world. And clearly here at a car show, it's a traditionally male-dominated domain. Having said that, I'm extremely proud here at the New Mobility World that we have a lot of female speakers, we have a lot of female representation, and I think, as you said, this becomes a very competitive advantage. What else do you look for when you do your due diligence? When you look at companies that are pre-revenue, where you don't really have too much to go by, you don't have any books yet, you don't have anything concrete, there's a little bit of a gut. What is it that you're looking for?
Well, again, I could go on, talk about this one for a really long time, but let me give you an example, right? So, this company that Joe mentioned with Mark Cuban, it's called Packback Books. And so it was a Saturday afternoon, January of 2013. These 2 kids come in, they sit on my couch, they're like 21, 22 years old. They tell me they have this idea to put college textbooks online, and you can rent them by the day for $5 for 1 day. And it just dawned on me, and they'd done some research. They'd interviewed 800 students. They said, "How much do you spend on books per quarter?" And it was in the hundreds of dollars. And then they said, "How many times do you open that $80 book?" And the average was 4. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute here. And then I'm thinking, what is it? It's an information gathering system. So this is sort of my general, what am I looking for? Information gathering systems, and then the ability to take that information and put it to use and to monetize it. So the boys are sitting there, and Mike's telling me that he's a ball boy at the Chicago Bulls. So he's building his company, he's working at night. He's not one of these, whatever you want to call them, got to pat him on the shoulder and tell him how great they are kind of guys. He's a hard worker. So they needed 10 grand to do an MVP, and I went to my office, I got a check, I gave him 15,000, I said, "Just don't fuck me over." And they didn't do it, right? And then a few months later, they're on Shark Tank, and Mark Cuban invests 250,000, and then we go in a quiet period where we can't talk about it for another few months before it's showed on TV, but that's it. It's people. It's people, people, people.
Yes, sorry, we didn't have the beat for Alan. I should have known that he's going to use the word. Final question, I think. One of the questions you always ask when I'm around, when you're looking at the due diligence, is the data. I know data is always very, very important to you. One of the questions that always comes is, who owns the data? No matter what you do, who ultimately has the data? Why is the data so important to you?
So, okay, so another good question, but to me data is almost is a non-starter for me, because I know anybody was around in the 1980s, there was the New Age, right? New Age music, New Age medicine, New Age blah, blah, blah. Well, that phrase has gone away, and I think the phrase data is gonna go away, because who cares? I mean, everybody talks about, I got this big data, I got this big data. So what, right? So what? Unless you know what to do with it, that's the key. It's the people that know how to connect the points of that data and turn it into something intelligent. Now, I'll give you an example of a company in Chicago called, oh gosh, I'm having my Perry moment, but narrative sciences. So narrative science takes data. So they'll take like a company like BMW, and with an algorithm, so with an algorithm, they look at all the data that the company is producing, and they write a story. So the computer writes a story that a 5-year-old can understand. And when you click through it, you can open it up like one page, and then you can just click through it like it's a novel. I mean, come on, they're taking data and they're translating it into something that can be used by human beings. So, I mean, it's what do you do with the data? What kind of intelligence do you do with it? What are the results of that? So collecting it is one thing, and I think it was 2008, the world collected more information that we could store. So that year we lost 15% of all the electronic data that was created.
Amazing. Alan, we're out of time. Thank you very much. Again, Alan Matthew, his company is called Tribal Ventures. Please look them up. He's an amazing guy, as you just heard, very multifaceted is the correct word. And I really, really appreciate you coming all the way to
Joe,
Frankfurt.
it's up to this guy. I came. He's the boss. So when you want to talk to somebody, he's the guy to see. So.
Thank you very much.